This is BRICS Global Television Network's weekly roundup. We begin with the headlines. Brazil's flood death toll rises to 100. India's elections enter phase 3. At least 8 killed in South African building collapse. And ByteDance enters into a legal tussle with US lawmakers. Hello, I'm Juliet Newell. We start in Brazil, where the death toll following devastating floods has risen to 100 in the southern state of Rio Grande do Sul. Authorities say this number could rise as the full scale of the disaster reveals itself following weeks of heavy downpours. Search and rescue teams working in flood-ravaged areas are racing against time to find 125 people reported missing. Forecasters say more heavy rains are expected, which will further hamper recovery efforts. BGTN's Brazil correspondent Chris Goldenbaum has more.
We are going through an incredible catastrophe here in our state. The floods began from the rains that began on April 29.
Alessandra Brodbeck speaks to us exclusively from Novo Hamburgo, a city in the metropolitan area of Porto Alegre. Porto Alegre is the capital of the state of Rio Grande do Sul, the southernmost state of Brazil, an area which borders Uruguay. This week, Rio Grande do Sul became known worldwide, but not for its vibrant Latin culture, its Italian and German heritage, or its strong personality, but because major parts of the state were simply underwater. In Alessandra's voice, we can get a sense of the fear and despair.
The state is in calamity. Classes have been suspended, hospitals have been flooded, and the entire population is without water. We've had some really difficult days here in Rio Grande do Sul.
All neighboring areas surrounding her house are underwater. She and her family have had no water supply for days, without any idea of when they will have it again. She shares alarming images with us from her area.
Passando em cima dos telhados, né? Olha o colégio. Não, fogo, acho que não.
According to meteorologists quoted in Brazilian media, this tragedy is the result of 3 factors coming together: strong winds, humidity from the Amazon, and the heat wave that is hitting the country. This resulted in unstoppable rains for weeks, which led to the overflowing of rivers. In Porto Alegre, a lake that surrounds the city, Lake Guaíba, is currently overflowing by over 5 meters of its capacity. This has caused the water to flood major areas of the city, such as the public market, the stadiums, and even the airport. On Monday, the airport was shut down until the end of May. Fortunately, the floods are also bringing a wave of unity to Brazil. Several donation campaigns are taking place across the country, such as this one here at the post office. Whoever brings something and drops here, they will make sure it gets to the affected areas. They've been receiving an overwhelming amount of donations at the post office in São Paulo. In less than a half an hour of our arrival, the number of donations nearly doubled. This is an initiative that shows how Brazilian institutions are pairing up with the community to assist the ones at the heart of the tragedy.
The Post Office, as a public company linked to the Ministry of Communications, plays a fundamental role in the integration of the country. In time of a humanitarian crisis, such as what is happening now in Rio Grande do Sul, the post office is called upon to mobilize the whole country in a network of solidarity. This is for people to make their contributions and donations so that the federal government's structure can reach all those municipalities that have been drastically affected by this disaster.
Drasticamente com essa fatalidade.
So far, in only 3 days since this action started, over 200 tons of donations have been received. The act of giving is a deeply personal experience for some. João Carlos becomes emotional when talking about what's happening. This is because of his own personal experience with a similar hardship during his childhood.
O povo brasileiro é muito solidário, né?
The Brazilian people are very supportive in almost every situation. We've never had a war here, but in major natural tragedies during the COVID crisis, in the various situations I've witnessed in my 50 years of life, there's always solidarity, right?
Sempre há uma solidariedade, né? População brasileira.
The Brazilian population is unique in the sense of helping others. Even if they don't have the means, people can minimize the serious situation that people in the south are going through.
Grave que os cidadãos do sul estão passando, né?
At least, Alessandra Broadbeck, despite being cut off from a water supply, is safe at her house with her family. She feels powerless about being able to help people in need, but she has managed to coordinate an operation to safeguard pets.
With the help of family members and friends, we managed to get 3 boats to rescue 80 animals and an animal protector who were consumed by water. They were all literally one step away from death. And with these 3 boats, we managed to rescue these animals and the protector.
Yet, she mentions all the other people who are currently on top of roofs unable to be reached. The Brazilian armed forces are using helicopters to rescue the ones who are stuck in areas where the water is so high that not even boats can access them. Help is always welcome, but for Broadbeck, preparedness should come first before help.
In the future, we need to have more effective plans in situations of catastrophes. Also, we can't play with nature any longer. We need to stop destroying it urgently, stop devastating, burning, killing it. All that is happening is an answer to what we do to nature, our environment.
Tudo que está acontecendo é uma resposta do que fazemos com a natureza.
So let's respect and protect our environment and always count on the strength of the next person and with our faith in God. Thank you.
Com a força do nosso próximo e a fé em Deus.
The water continues to fall, and nature is showing us that perhaps as we wait for the water to drain, we can find some time to reflect upon its message and take steps towards a future that involves more compassion and less rescuing. Chris Goldenbaum, BGTN, São Paulo, Brazil.
In Russia, Vladimir Putin's been inaugurated as president for a 5th term following his election victory in March. He addressed around 2,500 people at the inauguration ceremony held at the Kremlin on Tuesday, calling Russia a great and united nation. The 71-year-old views the presidency as a huge honor, responsibility and sacred duty. He said Russia would emerge from the current difficult period victorious and stronger, and said we'll achieve everything we've planned and together we will win. Those in attendance included envoys from France, Hungary, Slovakia, Greece, Malta and Cyprus, as well as Russia's top military and political brass. But the United States and many European nations did not send representatives to attend the event, calling Russia's elections a sham. Should Putin complete his new 6-year term, he'll surpass Soviet leader Joseph Stalin as the longest-serving ruler in Russia since Emperor Catherine the Great in the 1700s. In South Africa, 7 people have died and scores of others are still unaccounted for following a building collapse in the sleepy town of George in the Western Cape. The 5-story building was under construction with around 81 workers on site at the time of the collapse on Monday afternoon. Rescue teams have been working around the clock to pull out as many survivors as they can, with at least 29 people rescued so far. 6 have life-threatening injuries. 16 are in critical condition. Authorities say rescuers have been trying to shift debris 1 floor at a time as they search for survivors. But hopes are starting to fade with every passing hour. Western Cape Premier Alan Windey says the cause of the collapse is unknown at this time, but says a full investigation will be carried out to establish what happened.
We have to make sure that while this is happening, we have got specialist engineers on site, because we have to find out why this happened.
Meanwhile, in Kenya, search and rescue teams have managed to locate all 34 residents of the collapsed building in Nairobi. Earlier this week, a 5-story building in Mountain View Ward collapsed. Initially, 4 people were reported missing, including 3 children, but Nairobi Disaster Management has since provided an update saying everyone has now been located and there are no reports of casualties. It's understood residents were able to exit the building when they realized it was collapsing. Emergency teams, including sniffer dogs, continue to scour through the debris to ensure no one is trapped. Local government says it's providing immediate humanitarian aid and will provide further support and facilitate reintegration. The cause of the building collapse is under investigation. India remains committed to ensuring every eligible voter gets the chance to cast their ballot, no matter how remote. Almost 1 billion voters are expected to make their mark in the country's elections, which started on the 19th of April and will end on June the 1st. Results are expected to be announced on the 5th of June. The process rolls out over 7 stages, with the 3rd stage currently underway. Reaching millions of voters spread across 93 constituencies is quite a tall order, but the country has pledged to reach everyone. And deep inside a protected forest, there's a single voter, a Hindu monk, and even he has been afforded the opportunity to cast his ballot. BGTN South Africa correspondent Yolanda Pondo has that story.
According to electoral laws, voters cannot live more than 2 kilometers away from their polling booth, and at least 6 polling staff and 2 police officers have to man each voting station. That meant that a team of 10 people had to set up a booth just for one person. Officials had to travel for 2 days along unpaved roads and dense forests to their destination in Banej. That's where a man named Bahant Haridas Udasin is the sole resident. He is the custodian of a temple dedicated to Hindu deity Shiva. He moved in there 2019 after his predecessor passed away. The temple is located deep in the Gir forest next to a stream infested with crocodiles. The 42-year-old pitched up just before lunchtime to cast his vote. And regulations dictate that even if there's just one person voting, the booth has to remain open until the evening. Udasin, meanwhile, says he's loving all the attention he's receiving as lone over in a forest, adding, "It shows the power of democracy and makes me feel like the most important person in the world." Yolanda Pondo, BGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
In a bit, BRICS business, but first a look at what you can look forward to coming to BGTN soon.
Every white cross represents a farmer who has been murdered. Some call these the forgotten farm murders.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
This blind kid arrives. I get emotional. And he's special needs and he's blind. And they can't talk to him. So I grab him and I put him on the boxing bag and I put the gloves on and I illustrate to him, hit the bag. And just to see this child learn in 1 minute how to let his aggression go, and he loved it. And he was squealing because obviously he was mentally challenged and things like that. Just to see that, sure, it was incredible.
In BRICS business news, the annual investment meeting Congress 2024 is underway in Abu Dhabi. The theme for this year is adapting to a shifting investment landscape, harnessing new potential for global economic development. This annual gathering, organized by the AIM Global Foundation, brings together industry leaders, policymakers, investors, entrepreneurs, and experts from around the world. They're exploring innovative strategies and opportunities for economic growth and prosperity, with the participation of more than 900 speakers and the organization of over 450 dialogue sessions, 7 high-level roundtable meetings and 27 side events. The AIM Congress 2024 is exploring 2 important themes at the 13th edition: the SMEs track and the Regional Focus Forums track. These are designed to address critical issues facing small and medium-sized enterprises and to promote regional cooperation and synergy for sustainable progress, as well as development. Various forums will also provide a platform for stakeholders to discuss regional challenges, explore collaboratory solutions, and identify opportunities for mutual growth and prosperity. TikTok and its Chinese parent company ByteDance have launched a legal battle against the United States. US Congress wants the Chinese company ByteDance to sell TikTok in America, and now there's legislation in place backing those demands. The Chinese have 270 days to find a non-Chinese buyer, or TikTok will be banned in the United States. But the video sharing app and its owners say the law is unconstitutional and that Congress has made a law curtailing massive amounts of protected speech. In terms of selling the social app, ByteDance says this is not possible, and certainly not in the time frame given. There are around 170 million TikTok users in the US, and officials claim that national security is at risk, saying user data can be accessed through the app and used by the Chinese government. And in the battle of cell phone manufacturers, Samsung has now taken top spot in its battle against Apple. But there are new challenges when it comes to the market. Added to this, there are also questions about security, with some service providers accused of spying on customers' conversations. Ray White spoke to tech expert Toby Shapshak.
Everybody has a cell phone, or most people think they need one. So the big thing is, where is the cell phone war going? I'm talking about Apple, I'm talking about Android, but there are so many new players on the market. Joining us to discuss this is a tech expert, editor of Stuff, Toby Shapshak. Hi Toby, thank you for joining us.
Hi Ray. It's a fascinating market, isn't it? Because there was a time where this was a breakthrough device, but all it could do was make a phone call. In fact, the buttons say end and send, and they couldn't even fit the E in on send. You know, so we now live in a world where a phone is not a phone is a portal to the internet, isn't it?
It is, but it's becoming so big now because it's the race to have the best apps. Who's winning?
So it's really a 2-horse race between Apple with its iOS ecosystem and Google, who has their Android ecosystem. Android is by far the biggest, and it's by far the most widely used by most people, especially people on a continent like Africa or anywhere in the BRICS nation, where we have mostly emerging markets. So when we're talking outside of North America, we're almost exclusively talking about Android. There's a 90% market share. So the real big gorilla in the room is Google and their Android operating system. And as I've been saying for years and years, Google is evil. And it's kind of like having Big Brother staring over your shoulder at what you're doing on the internet. So as much as it's a conversation about technology, it's also a conversation about privacy, and Google are not to be trusted.
Why are they not to be trusted? Because, look, I'll be honest, you see WhatsApp, you send your friend a WhatsApp. about pianos, and all of a sudden on your timeline on Facebook says, look, have you seen the latest pianos? What's going on?
But what you have is Google was the dominant player in search, and it was very good at search on the desktop, as we called bigger computers. And then mobile came along, and they bought a small startup called Android, and they've turned their operating system into a powerhouse. It is the Windows of mobile smartphones. It is the Windows, basically, of what this next generation of technology users have been using for the last 15 years or so. But they have a terrible reputation for spying on their users. They've used cookies, they've used a bunch of other things. There've been a bunch of privacy complaints by privacy watchdogs around the world. In a previous version of Android, even when you told Google not to track you and you wiped the phone, it continued to track its users. So it has a history of not really caring about individual privacy. This has a real impact. People say, well, I've got nothing to hide. It's a misnomer. Your privacy is the most important thing you have, your personal information. Also, if you're in a dangerous regime or there are dangerous elements, they can track you, they can see what you're doing, they can spy into your operating system. And that in of itself is particularly dangerous.
Toby Shapshak, editor of Stuff, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to speaking to you in a few years' time to see perhaps the models that you brought over there. You'll have different models. You'll have a smartphone we have today and say, remember, this is what we had, and we'll laugh about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, BRICS Sport, but first, take a look at what's coming soon to BGTN.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
What was your moment in prison when you were like, I don't want to do this anymore?
I was 21 years old when I took my first life in prison. I had 1 star on my shoulder. By the age of 25, I became the first star general of the 28s, meaning that I had 4 stars on both my shoulders. I had taken 8 people's lives.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
I remember being in the stadium, going into the stadium, and there were kids outside asking for our autograph and things like that. And they really believed that we were these superhuman characters, that we just used the wheelchair to get around, hidden superpowers kind of thing. And the stadium in London was sold out every single day. I mean, for that, it I think was both for the athlete and for people around the world said, this is actually something worth watching. This is something, that's worthwhile. We can take note of it.
This is BGTN's weekly roundup in BRICS Sports News. There's a new event in this year's Olympic Games, and South African athlete Courtney Paul is getting in as much practice as she can ahead of the Paris 2024. Breakdancing will be making its debut in this year's Games, and the 32-year-old is hoping to be part of history in the making. She'll have to qualify first, though, with those competitions set to take place in Shanghai and Budapest. She's one of 7 African breakdancers competing for a place. But her breakdancing journey hasn't been an easy one.
Obviously, I have brands that I work with that support me, but 9 out of 10 times, everything is coming out of pocket. For those who know anything about my life, I'm a choreographer, I'm a DJ. Even now, I think I train 7 times a week. Tomorrow, I've got a DJ gig. And it's these things that I need to keep doing in order to fund this dream of mine,
Courtney says her passion for doing what she loves is what keeps her dreams alive.
To prepare for an event like this, like a Rebel BC one or even an Olympic qualifier, touch wood, maybe Olympics one day, honestly, it's not an overnight thing. Breaking is not one of those dance styles where you wake up today and compete it tomorrow. It is something that takes a long time to understand certain movements. For example, if I was going to teach you maybe choreography in another dance style, you could learn 1 or 2 steps today. Breaking, it's like if I'm teaching you a backflip, we're looking at months.
Meanwhile, the Olympic flame is now on French soil following its journey from Greece, where the flame was lit in Olympia on April 16th. Thousands of people gathered to witness the flame being transferred from a historic 19th century masted ship to shore. It marks the start of a 12,000-kilometre torch relay across France and overseas territories over the next 2.5 months, with its destination and moment of glory at the 2024 Olympic Games opening ceremony in Paris on the 26th of July. And in Brazil, football giants are opening their hearts and pockets to victims of the devastating floods in the southern parts of the country. 100 people have lost their lives since a series of heavy downpours wreaked havoc in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, and hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced. Football stars, including Neymar, Vinicius Jr. and Ronaldinho, are doing what they can to help fundraising efforts, using their celebrity status and social media presence to raise awareness. Neymar's private jet's being used to transport much-needed aid, and in a post on social media, he said, "Brazil is going through a delicate moment and helping is never too much." Meanwhile, local club players have been using their own jet skis to help rescue people left stranded by floodwaters. And Porto Alegre's top football clubs, Grêmio and Internacional, players have put their fierce rivalry aside, joining forces in rescue efforts. BGTN and Newshound Media have marked World Press Freedom Day by raising awareness about the importance of environmental journalism and celebrating the work of journalists who've made a valuable contribution. During a webinar, keynote speaker Alan Schwartz, a renowned environmentalist and Newshound's environmental ambassador, delved into the pivotal role journalists play in raising awareness about environmental issues and advocating for change. He spoke about the broader impact of environmental degradation and the importance of collective action in addressing these challenges.
Press Freedom Day really is fundamental to all of the things that we have fought for in the 20th century and in the beginnings of the new millennia. We're now almost 25 years into it. And with press freedom comes information, and information hopefully that has been witnessed by somebody who is reliable and who is not influenced by anything other than what they see, what they observe, what they hear, and actually looking for the truth. That's really what press freedom is about.
BGTN and Newshound Media presented the Journalist of the Year award to Estacio Valai, an investigative and environmental journalist from Mozambique. Estacio's relentless efforts in spotlighting environmental issues in Mozambique were lauded, reflecting the crucial role journalists play in driving positive change.
Investigative journalism has been one of my main aims, because without investigative journalism, you cannot expose these people, because you need to bring facts, name the people, jail them. And by exposing this, you also come aligned with other organizations, other colleagues around the world, which end up publishing it in a range or in a great group of media, associated to civil society, which end up putting pressure on the government in order to change the way how they behave. And if you look today, we've been facing this not only in Mozambique, but almost in the entire world.
And finally, BRICS Global Television Network is proud to announce the launch of the 22 Seconds Anti-Trafficking campaign. This campaign aims to shed light on the alarming reality that one person is trafficked every 22 seconds somewhere in the world. Running from May the 1st to June the 3rd this year, this initiative seeks to raise awareness and inspire action to combat human trafficking on a global scale. For more information and to add your voice to the fight against human trafficking by signing the petition, visit our website. Well, that's it for now. We'll have more next week. In the meantime, check out our social media for updates.